In this video, I'm going to show you how you can create your $1 million plan with this network projection spreadsheet behind me. Now, I know the title of the video is to create a $1 million plan, but I know some of you are ambitious and may have goals set higher than that. And that's perfectly fine because this spreadsheet will be just as valuable to you and works for any net worth goal, whether it's 1 million, 5 million, or even 10 million. So let's not waste too much time and jump right into the computer. So in this Google Sheets tutorial, I'll show you exactly how you can use this spreadsheet and then walk you through how to build it step by step so you can have a copy to use for yourself and your own financial goals. So why would you want to spend the time to actually build this? Well, if you're like me, it helps to have a visual reference for what your goals actually are. If you haven't ever done a net worth projection, this is very helpful for seeing not only what your goals are, but when you can realistically expect to achieve them, as well as what you need to do to get there. For many people, messing around in one of these spreadsheets is really their aha moment on money, and they realize that building wealth and achieving the life they want is not a dream, but something that they actually can achieve. Maybe you've already had this moment, but if not, this might be a good place to start. With that being said, let me walk through briefly how this spreadsheet works. In this case, this is actually a rather simple spreadsheet and we can build more advanced ones in the future, but for most people, this is enough to get started. Effectively, based on a certain set of assumptions, we're projecting what your net worth will be over time. We do this by starting with your current net worth and then adding on estimates of income, taking out estimates of taxes and spending, and then adding back in our estimates for your investment growth. Your net worth at the end of that year is then the net worth at the beginning of the next year, and we repeat that cycle on and project it forward. Doing this allows you to see how your projections of your net worth will change if you vary any of these set assumptions. In addition to that, I built out an indicator down here below, which will help get you a sense of when you've achieved financial independence. Now, financial independence is effectively the point at which your net worth is large enough that you can live off of your investments indefinitely. This means while you certainly can work if you want to, you no longer have to support your lifestyle. In this case, these levels of financial independence, low confidence, mid confidence, and high confidence are based on how many times your net worth is greater than your annual spending. In this case, if your net worth has reached a level of 25 times your annual expenses, you've reached the first stage of financial independence. Obviously, this is no guarantee, but you can increase your confidence that the amount that you have will be sufficient to sustain you by increasing that multiple of your annual spending. In this case, to achieve a high confidence of your financial independence, you would achieve a multiple of 40 times your annual spending. We have those net worth levels calculated here in today's dollars, as well as the projected age you will achieve each of these levels of financial independence. There's also a distinction between your current annual spending as well as your desired annual spending. While you may be spending a certain amount right now, there may be a desired standard of living that requires a higher level of expenses in the future. This calculator helps you account and plan for that so you know exactly how much more you need to feel comfortable at your desired spending level. But effectively, if you can reach this net worth in today's dollars of 40 times your desired annual spending, then you're pretty much set financially. So there's the entire completed copy of the spreadsheet, but now let's start from scratch and I'll walk you through step by step so you can build a copy of this for yourself. So this is a Google Sheets tutorial and Google Sheets is free for anyone who has a Google account. To start, simply access your Google account and go to your Google Drive. From there, you'll create a new document and scroll down to Google Sheets. This will open a new spreadsheet, which you can then title whatever you'd like. So to begin, we're going to start off by building out the initial structure and framework for the spreadsheet. In this case, we're going to add a row for age as well as for year. And then we'll build out the components of the net worth projection. In this case, we'll start with your beginning of year net worth. After that, we're going to add back the income that you earn in that year. In this case, if you want to have a plus sign in front of income, you'll need to have a single quotation mark in front of the plus sign so that whole thing is treated as text. Otherwise, it'll think it's a formula and you'll run into a few errors there. Next, we'll take out taxes that have to be paid on that income that you earn. Then we're going to deduct the annual expenses, which is your current annual spending. And finally, we're going to add back any investment growth that occurs during that period. If you add up all of those components, that will give you the end of year net worth value. So before we start filling in the numbers, we'll go to our assumptions because these will be basically our inputs for the spreadsheet and what we'll use to actually change and modify the values. In this case, many of the assumptions will be based simply on the rows that we've outlined so far. In this case, we'll start off with year, age, your initial annual income, your initial annual spending, what your net worth is to start out, your tax rate assumption, which is the assumed tax rate for all of your income, your rate of return on your investments, your personal inflation rate, which effectively is how much you increase your annual spending per year, and then your annual income increase. In this case, that'll be expressed as a percentage. So I'm going to right justify all of those pieces of text, and we're going to start putting in our assumptions here. So in this case, you would obviously fill out the assumptions that are relevant to you. In this case, I'll fill out something that's a little similar to me, and then we can work from there. So in this case, I've got year and age, an annual income, current annual spending. We're starting off with a net worth of 0 for this projection. Assumed tax rate of 30%. In this case, it's probably better to be conservative. Same goes for your investment rate of return. I likely wouldn't use a rate of return higher than 8% for these projections. It's possible that you may actually achieve rates of return higher than that in the market. However, if you're projecting over longer periods of time, having rates over 8% likely will throw off your projections somewhat. And then in this case, we have a personal inflation rate of 3% and an annual income increase of 5%. So to make this clear that these are inputs, I'm going to select all of them, and we're going to make this a blue section. All right, so now that you've got these values fit for your situation, we'll use these to start building out the actual projection. In this case, these will all be formulas, so the only thing you'll ever need to update are these inputs right here. So for the starting age, simply do equals and then select the age here. In this case, it'll be D22. The same goes for the year. So now that you have those first two here, in the next column in D, we're going to, for the age, do equals, and then we'll select C4, which is just your previous year's age, and then we're just going to add 1. So you can enter a similar formula down here, or you can just drag and drop, as we've learned in previous lessons, that the relative referencing will carry over. You can also do highlight down and do Control D. So now that we've got the formula that we want, we can move that formula across and just do Control R, which will drag it all over. So going down to beginning net worth, we're going to just select our initial net worth here. Same thing goes for initial income, which will be selected here, in this case D23. As for taxes, we'll want to take our income from above, so this will be C8, and then we're going to multiply it by our total tax rate assumption, and we're going to hit F4 or put a $ in front of both the D and in front of the 26, and this will lock our tax rate assumption in place, so it's not going to move even if we drag this formula across. In this case, since it's taxes and we're taking away, I'm going to add the negative sign there. As for spending, it'll be the negative of whatever our initial spending was, so D24. And then for growth, what we're going to do is we're actually going to take the sum of all of these above values, so your beginning of your net worth, your income, minus your taxes and spending. So we'll take all of that, and then we're going to multiply it by the investment rate of return, hitting F4 or the $ in front of each to lock that in, and then we'll hit enter there. So this is your hypothetical investment growth on your net worth and income for the year, minus your taxes and spending. And then finally, your end of your net worth is simply the sum of all of the above. Now, before we're able to move these formulas across, we need to make some adjustments to both the income and the spending. Currently, these formulas have us just referencing the initial income and initial spending. However, those are both projected to increase over time. So we'll need to reflect that within each of these formulas. So for the income, we're going to take the current initial income, and then we're going to multiply it, in this case by 1 plus the annual income rate of increase. So in this case, it's D29. We're going to lock that by pressing F4, adding the $ so it's an absolute reference. And then we're going to raise that to the power, because this is how many times we want that to compound. In this case, we don't want it to compound any years, but we do want it to compound as the years do progress. So in this case, the way we'll do that is we're going to select this year up top, so C5, and we're going to subtract our initial year, which is stated here in our assumptions. So in this case, D21. And in this case, we'll do F4, so we're locking in the D21. If we move it forward 1, there's actually a mistake here, so we can check out where that is in the formula. In this case, you'll notice that the E23 reference, that should have actually been locked on D23. So we can go back and fix that. So we'll press F4, lock D23. Now we move that over, and now we've got our income projection increasing by 5% per year. So if you move that all the way over, doing just Control R, you'll see that increases by the stated 5%. So we can do something similar for our spending. We learned the lesson, we're going to lock that D24 in place. We're going to multiply that by 1 plus our personal inflation rate, so how much our projected spending is to increase every year. We're going to lock that in place by pressing F4 to make sure that doesn't move, which adds those dollar signs. And then we're going to do the same structure up here where we'll take our current year, whatever it is, and minus our initial year to get the number of years that we want to compound. Again, locking in that D21 or that initial year in place. And I think we should be good to go there. So highlighting things over. Again, to do this highlighting, I'm just selecting this cell, holding Shift and then clicking the arrow key over and then hitting Control R. And that'll move over our projected spending, which increases at 3%. As for taxes, this is a simple formula which just references the above income so that we can drag over or highlight and Control R. And the growth, again, is a formula that we don't need to update. It's already good to go. And then same for the end of year net worth. However, we do need to update the beginning of year net worth. In this case, for the next year, it's simply whatever the end of year net worth was for the previous year. So once you update that there, we've got pretty much the core structure here. And right now, this is very hard to read with all the decimals. So we're going to go to formatting. In this case, I'm going to format it as accounting. And I actually have a special accounting format that I like that has negative numbers highlighted as red. So I'll use that. In this case, I'll go over that formatting here. If we go to more formats, custom number format, if you type in this formatting here in the custom number format, you'll be able to get the same formatting that I have here. So I'm going to hit apply. I'm actually going to apply that to these 3 cells down here in our assumptions, just so everything is consistent. So while it's not complete, you've already got a good idea of how this will actually work in practice. So if you're earning, let's say $80,000 a year, you're spending only $20,000 and your taxes are 30%, you can get 7% return, and you keep your spending down to 3% while you increase your income by 5%. I know that's a lot of assumptions, but basically it boils down to this projection here. You'll have $1 million starting from nothing by the time you're 36 years old, which isn't too bad. And I know many of you might have goals that are similar to that or even, more aggressive than that. And that's perfectly fine. You simply just adjust your assumptions down here to suit whatever you want your goal to be. In this case, one other thing that can be helpful to add is having another row down here for total saved. In this case, this will just be the sum of your income minus your taxes and spending. So it'd be this section here, C8 to C10. And to denote a range, if you're actually typing it in instead of dragging it, you would just type in C8 colon C10. So we're going to move that across. And that is the total saved, as in what you're actually adding to your portfolio from actual earnings. This doesn't include investment growth. One thing that's also neat to see from this is that by age 37, your investments will produce more in income than the actual amount of money that you can save, which is pretty cool to think that your investments are now producing more for yourself than you are. But again, $1 million will be more to some and less for others. A lot of it depends on what your current and desired actual spending are. If your spending is exceptionally low, $1 million will go a lot further. However, if you have more expensive tastes and a higher cost of living, then $1 million won't go quite as far. In this case, to make it a relative metric, we're going to add 2 layers here. One of them is your net worth over your current spending, and then the other is your net worth over your desired spending. In this case, since we have not added that into our assumptions, we'll put that down here below. So in this case, I'm going to say an annual desired spending of twice what our current spending is. Going to right justify this like the rest, and we have that now in our assumptions. So for our net worth divided by our current spend, well, first we're going to right justify that to clear out the C column. But to actually calculate this, this will simply be the end of year net worth divided by the current spending for that year. In this case, we'll add a negative sign to make that a positive multiple. And that's pretty much it, straightforward. You can drag that across. In this case, I'm going to format this as a number, but I'm going to reduce the decimal places so it's only one decimal place showing. Now for net worth divided by our desired spending, we actually don't have desired spending referenced in our spreadsheet so far, so we'll need to build that out within this formula. In this case, we'll copy the formula from our current spending and adjust that so it'll represent our desired spending. In this case, there are two changes that need to be made. The first is with the D24 reference, which currently references our current spending, but we need it to reference D30, which is our assumption for desired annual spending. Additionally, the C12 needs to be changed back to C5, which was the year reference. And if you want, you can also lock in that 5 as well. You don't want to lock in the C because we want that to change over time. So I think that should be good for our desired spending, which looks good here. Now to get that ratio, we simply want to put everything in here in parentheses. In this case, we're also going to remove the negative sign to make it a positive ratio. And then we're going to add our net worth and then divide that by our desired spending. So drag that ratio across and we're going to adjust the formatting again. So that will be a number and I'm going to bring it back down to one decimal place. So now that we have the multiples, we can add our financial independent levels. Before we do that though, I'm going to adjust the column widths of all the columns and I'm going to resize them to 80 instead of 100. So just make things a little cleaner. So if you give me a second, I'll build out this table real quick. So right now we have the tables built out for the financial independence levels. All of these values are simply just text or numbers. There's no formulas yet. These sections that are highlighted, we will put in formulas in a second, but for now, we're going to take a little bit of time to clean up the spreadsheet and add some formatting. So first I'm going to add some borders, which you can do in this little section up here. This basically just blocks out each of these sections and makes things look a little bit neater. I'm also going to merge a few cells and center a few of these items in here. Okay, so that's starting to look a little bit better. Nothing crazy here, just a few borders and some bolding and underlining really. But now we can move on to conditional formatting, which is how I got these to be color coded over here, this net worth to current spend ratio. So to do conditional formatting, you want to highlight this entire range, then go to Format, Conditional Formatting. Then you can select different rules. In this case, we're going to do less than or equal to, and we're going to do 25. Custom format. We're going to make this red. So basically what it's saying is if your net worth is less than 25 times your annual spending, then it's going to be red or not financially independent. And we can actually color code the same colors that we'll be using in the conditional formatting here so that it will be consistent. So for this, we'll just add another rule. Next one is less than or equal to 33. And we'll want to use our yellow. Add another rule, less than or equal to 40 is light green. And then for the final rule, greater than 40, or for a high confidence level of financial independence, will be this darker green. And there we go. And to save ourselves time, what we can do is copy this entire section, and then for the section below it, we can select all, and then right click, paste special, and then paste format only. That will paste over the format with the same rules. And if you want to extend out more years, you can select some columns and insert columns so the spreadsheet is bigger. And then you can just take this and drag it on over. So in this case, it projects it out a bit further. Now for the net worth thresholds, these aren't actually too bad. Basically just take your multiple, and what we're going to do is we're going to lock the J column, and we're going to multiply it by our current annual spending here, and then we can bring that down. And for the desired spending, it's also the same multiple times our desired annual spending here. We're going to lock that in place. So there's our thresholds for today's dollars for reaching each of those levels of financial independence. Now for the bottom section, projected age, this is the age at which you project to actually hit each of these levels of financial independence, depending on whether you're based on your current spending or your desired spending. Now, it's not too hard to see just based from the color coding here, but if you actually want to have the numbers written out here, we'll have to create a formula for that. To do this, we're going to use what's called a match function. Now, the match function returns the relative position of an item in a range that matches a specified value. So in this case, we're looking for how many years until we reach our 25 multiple. In this case, I'm going to lock the J column. And which range are we searching? Well, we're searching our net worth to current spend. So we'll select all of that and we'll hit F4 to lock that in. And then finally, in the last case, since we're not looking for exactly when we hit 25, but the year we actually go over 25, instead of using a 0 for an exact match, we're going to use a 1 for that part of the function. That gives us a projected number of years, 9 after our starting year. So we are going to add on our age of 24, or our initial age, whatever that may be for you, and add that to the formula. So in this case, at age 33, we reach the first stage of financial independence for our current annual spending, which can be verified here from the graph or from the color coding as age 33. So the way this formula stands now, you can just drag this down over here, and you can also drag it across. However, for dragging it across in the desired annual spending, we'll need to change this lookup range from C16 to AK16 to C17 to AK17, which looks up the range that covers our net worth over desired spending. Hit enter, bring that down, and you're good to go. And the final piece was just a very simple chart of the net worth. You can do that by selecting end of year net worth and then going over to insert, chart. We've got our chart here. So I'm going to add an x-axis. In this case, I'm going to add the age. So we'll just highlight the same section of the age. And other things, I'm just going to quickly remove the legend since I don't really need that. And yeah, there we go. So I'm going to take that and just move it over into that position. And that's pretty much it. The only other change that I made was moving our assumption box up one row so it aligns with the rest of our thresholds down here. So now that you have this built, the real benefit comes from exploring how these projections change if you change these assumptions. So in this example, this person's reaching a net worth of $1 million by age 36. But if, let's say, you had a very aggressive goal and trying to hit $1 million by maybe, let's say, age 30, well, you can experiment and see what you actually would need to do in order to get there. Now, some of these assumptions in practice may be easier to change than others. One of the things we have the most control over is our annual spending, so you can test out how different levels of spending affect these results. Generally, this is a pretty strong lever you can pull to try and reach your financial goals, particularly if your current level of spending is relatively high. Additionally, if you find ways to increase your income at a faster rate, either through raises at your job or through starting a side business or some other activity, then you can see a rather dramatic impact. Additionally, spending some time to learn the tax code and understand how you can save on taxes legally can be a big helper as well. But even with all of those, we only managed to get ourselves to $1 million at age 33. So you have to understand that by choosing a very aggressive target, you're going to have to make a lot more money. Now, I know online there are a lot of people who want to be millionaires in their 20s. This calculator can help give you a sense of what it's going to take to get you there. It can be done, but be sure to set realistic expectations for your assumptions and be willing to put in the work to get there and achieve them. Anyways, I hope you found this video helpful. If you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, you can do so by clicking my face here and join our growing investor community. Until next time, my name's Michael. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.